Before we start, please make sure to click subscribe and like. Hello everyone, I am Park Seni, the head of Mind Coaching, Park Seni. Today, I will give a detailed lecture on why slumps occur and how to overcome them in detail. In life, anyone can fall into a slump. Why do slumps occur? Why do things that used to go well suddenly not work out? Well, many students say they are always experiencing a slump when their grades don't improve. They often talk in this way, but students who always talk about slumps don't just mention it once. You can see that they frequently use terms like slump, another slump, and so on. If you truly don't want to live under the weight of a slump, you need to listen carefully to what the teacher is about to say and equip yourself with the mental strength to genuinely overcome slumps. Among the people, Sun, the teacher admires, is someone named Choi Bai-dal. He is an incredible person who created Kyokushin karate. In short, he traveled around the world and proved his strength as the strongest in the world through real combat. There is someone who created 100 people. He engaged in real combat with over 100 world-class masters, where there were no referees and everything was allowed, proving himself to be the strongest. He is a truly admirable person, and he always emphasized to his students that despite being the world's strongest, he would meticulously consider whether he was clenching his fist properly. Additionally, he practiced punching 2,000 times a day without taking a single day off or making any excuses, continuing this routine until his retirement. Some might wonder if he was the most powerful being in the world. Why would he bother with such things? Some might think it would be better to just create something flashy and show it off. However, this is what he said in various interviews. He said that the most important reason he was able to ultimately win against people who were over 2 meters tall and weighed more than twice his own weight, like some monstrous, formidable beings, was by exploiting their openings and delivering a straight punch. This, the most basic of basics, which he had practiced countless times and executed unconsciously, was the fundamental force that allowed him to subdue and defeat those formidable beings in truly life-threatening situations. So he always emphasized to his students the importance of being faithful to the basics. Now then, everyone, how faithful are you to the basics in your life? You need to keep thinking about that. I also keep pondering what the basics of basics are. Am I honing and practicing them properly? I am trying to think about these things more than others do. When you first learn Taekwondo, you are given a black belt. What does that black belt signify? It's proof of a high level of skill. However, the original meaning of the black belt is that you start with a white belt and continue training persistently. As you train every day, the belt gets soaked with sweat from the rigorous training, gets stained by your hands and feet, and gets scuffed from rolling around. After years of continuous effort, what do you think the belt will look like? The belt turns black, and that is a true black belt. It is someone who has consistently honed the basics every day, who reaches that position, even after becoming a black belt. If you continue to make steady efforts, the belt will start to fray and eventually return to white. After a few years, it turns black again, and this is the philosophy of the belt. The distinction between the highest level and the beginner is not separate. It is about continuously connecting, repeating, and advancing through persistent effort. This philosophy is demonstrated through the belt. Therefore, only those who are always faithful to the basics can rise to the top. Now, the teacher often emphasizes and talks about athlete Kim Yuna to the students. Kim Yuna, what kind of jumps does she perform? She performs jumps that are based on the basics. So when you look at Kim Yuna now, you see that she hardly ever had a slump since she was young. What is the reason for that? It's because she always showed a dedication to the basics. Although it's hard to say that Kim Yuna never faced challenges, she experienced them less than others. Definitely so. All of Kim Yuna's jumps and subsequent movements are rooted in her dedication to the basics. They all transformed into artistic movements that could completely immerse and captivate others. Therefore, it is only natural that someone who is dedicated to the basics becomes the best. Kim Yuna's rival, who was always pointed out as such, is the Japanese skater Mao Asada. But what kind of jumps does Mao Asada perform? The triple axel, which is probably the most difficult jump in the world. How many times has the skater Mao Asada successfully performed the triple axel in actual competitions? There were probably very few instances. Before praising her courage, The problem arises when someone who is not thoroughly prepared and not grounded in the basics tries to attempt a higher level. It's the same for students. If a math problem can't be solved, it can't suddenly become unsolvable. The parts where you weren't grounded in the basics accumulate and create gaps in the middle, preventing you from moving to the next level right now. But many people vaguely describe it as just experiencing a slump. It's unfortunate that so many people express it this way. Before calling it a slump, it's an issue that arises from the accumulation of not being grounded in the basics. If you're going to call it a slump, then what would be the way to quickly overcome it? It's quite obvious. You need to quickly return to the basics and reassess which fundamental aspects you haven't checked well and where you haven't become proficient. Just sleep unconditionally. Just forget about it and think that time will pass and you'll overcome the slump. That absolutely doesn't make sense and is a foolish thought. So, the characteristic of people who constantly talk about being in a slump is that they have not been faithful to the basics, and they like to use the word slump as an excuse, enjoying the unfortunate case of just idling around. Therefore, living a life where you can minimize the use of the word slump is an admirable life. Not talking about being in a slump means that you are living faithfully to the basics. So, I hope you become someone who does not acknowledge the concept of a slump. If you continuously check the fundamental values and important things every day, you can become someone who doesn't need to use the word slump, and that makes you a more admirable person. Don't allow yourself to flounder in a slump in this one life you live. Build a solid foundation by being faithful to the basics so that a slump can never occur. Then you can live a life permanently separated from the concept of a slump. I will end it here for today. Thank you. See you next time. Goodbye, my dear friend. And please take care.